Oh, I hope you're excited. I'm excited. It is not only an Indiana Outdoors weekend. I am your host, Brian Pointer, but we are midweek. Midweek. We are mid-month. I wish. I just want this to slow down. Let this time slow down and enjoy this beautiful fall weather. The conditions this last week couldn't have been any better, and we are looking forward to some great fall events this weekend and throughout the remaining course of whatever time we have left before the snow flies. A lot of fairs and festivals, football galore, changing the colors. But we got an Indiana Outdoor show to do, and we're going to do it very well, and couldn't be more happy to have some folks with us, like the director of our Department of Natural Resources. He's going to be with us, the director, Cam Clark, finding out what he's been up to, what thoughts he might have as we round into the fall. He's always got a great message leading all those thousands of people within our Department of Natural Resources and doing it extraordinarily well in times that often are filled with pressure and other things. But he will be with us and find out where his travels are. I know he's a voracious hunter, and we're going to find out what he has been doing in field and forest and where. We're also going to visit with Guy Relford. You know him as the Gun Guy. He is a regular contributor here on Indiana Outdoors, has his own great show on our home station here in Indianapolis on WIBC, known as the Gun Guy. We're going to talk about, revisit an issue that has been in the mainstream media and, of course, on a lot of people's radar in the political world, talking about background checks. And he recently had a wonderful conversation with our own state senator, our U.S. Senator Mike Braun, who had some interesting thoughts. And what came out of that was not so much positions as it was what didn't come out of it. And we're going to find out what perspective the Gun Guy had talking to U.S. Senator Mike Braun. We always appreciate an open conversation about those issues, and that's what that's all about. And we're going to visit with Ginger Murphy. She is with us regularly, as you know. Fall, a great time for our Division of State Parks. This is the Mardi Gras of seasons if you are a fan of our Indiana State Parks, and if you're not, you should get into one and become a fan. So as you can see, we have a lot coming forward. Ginger Murphy is on hold. I am your host, Brian Pointer, and it is the Indiana Outdoor Show this beautiful weekend. Don't go anywhere. Back right after this. It is a great weekend. Of course it is. It's October in Indiana. There is no better month in the state of Indiana and no better place to be in October than in Indiana. Hopefully we finally will have some fall color change. It may be brief, but it's still a beautiful time to be here in the state of Indiana. And with that being outside, that's what we're all about. It's the Indiana Outdoor Show, as you know. And with that, we're going to visit with our good friends at the Division of Parks. Ginger Murphy is with us now. Ginger, it's always great to have you with us, but this is just a big weekend. It's the Mardi Gras of months for you folks over at the state parks, isn't it?
It is. It is just, we love October. We love people being in parks all year long, but October is just a great time to be outside. For the most part, the bugs are starting to disappear. It's just the leaves are changing at this time of year. Right now, they're mostly all still green. And we have all sorts of October activities. And people have just come to love Halloween. So we do Halloween all month long in October in our campground.
Why not?
Why not? Yeah. Yeah. Every property does at least one weekend of events, trick-or-treating, costume contests, pet costume contests, campsite decorating contests. People haul in truckloads of stuff for the campground, and it's a lot of fun. It's fun for our staff, and it's fun for campers. Then we have history activities. Last weekend was Mississinawa 1812. There's activities in the Pioneer Village all weekend at Spring Mill. Mounds has great activities. So that are related to history. It's a great month.
It is a great month, and the folks at state parks do such a great job year-round, and you highlight some of those, but it also brings activities to the park that we normally don't see, and that is the deer reduction hunts take place in several of our state parks, and that obviously is necessary to control with the crowds coming in, and you do it at other times. What does that look like for folks visiting state parks?
Well, the hunts, the management hunts, so we're calling them management hunts now because it really is management of the ecosystem, and the deer are part of the ecosystem. So we're managing the deer so that we can have plants and other species as well. The hunts are November 18th and 19th and December 2nd and 3rd, and the parks are closed. The parks we're hunting are closed on those days. But other than that, people can visit. The drawings have happened for those deer. For those deer management hunts, people put in for those in July and August, and we do the drawings in September with our partners in the Division of Fish and Wildlife. And the hunters are all set, and on those 4 days, November 18th and 19th and December 2nd and 3rd, we'll have hunters in, I think it's about 17 of our parks this year that will have hunts. A couple of them are archery hunts, and a couple of satellite properties, Cave River Valley and Trine State Recreation Area, are a part of that 17. So, it's an opportunity for us to manage the deer so that we can have wildflowers and understory trees and shrubs in a healthy way, and have a healthy deer population as well. So it's an important thing. We've been doing it since the early 1990s, and successfully, and most properties get hunted every other year. There are a few that seem to get hunted every year because of the number of deer outside the property that can come in. But it's just a really effective tool for us to make sure we not only have deer for people to see occasionally, like they should, but we have wildflowers and we have shrubs and we have healthier forests because of it.
It's just a great management practice, and it's hard to believe that they've been going on all this time, because when it was first proposed and discussed, I know emotions ran high, to say the least, but it's certainly proven that good, sound science prevails, and we do have healthy parks, because there were many of our state parks at that time of those first hunts that they were in bad shape. There was a risk of a lot of ecosystem permanent damage, and that would have destroyed those parks.
They were. If you look at Brown County, was the first property that was hunted. And if you looked at, I remember driving along the main road up by the park office and the big open field that at one time was an airfield. It's a pollinator meadow now, but by the fire tower, you could look over to the woods edge, and that's a place where you could see the woods edge in a distance, and it looked like a cow pasture that had trees along one edge where you could see a line across the bottom of the trees where the deer had eaten everything. And of course the deer would come up to people's cars, and they were not healthy, they were thin. And now when you see a deer at Brown County, it's healthy. And you also see yellow lady slippers, which had completely disappeared. Those were like candy to deer. And so they are growing again and visible again. And that's an important example that I always share with people is, look, we want you to be able to see deer, but we also want you to be able to see yellow lady slippers. And doing the management hunts, and we do them in a scientific way. Every year we look at the number of hunters who are successful, and we base the next year's decisions about which properties will be hunted on the success rate. And if it's dropping, then we may not hunt that property for the year. So we're looking at it in a scientific way. But it's a great tool for us to be able to manage. And we still have people who don't like that we do it. We understand that, but sometimes tough decisions have to be made, and this is one of them.
Ginger Murphy is our guest from the Division of Parks. You're with us throughout the year on a variety of things, but the fall, there's something special about our Indiana State Parks in the fall. We've talked about you can experience each park in 4 different environments and have a very different experience from winter, obviously, through to spring and summer. But there's just something special about the fall that you hear people in the parks. You have the beautiful colors, you have the smells of campfires and a lot of other activity, and people really put that on their calendar as a destination, some places more than others, but all of our parks are so beautiful in the fall, and you guys do a great job. How do you encourage people to prepare for their trips to these state parks in the fall?
Well, we certainly want people to think about the weather. Think about the weather conditions. It may be cool, so bring warmer clothes. Make sure if you're going to bring firewood that you're bringing certified firewood. This year we're dealing with some burn bans in the southern part of the state. We've had probably a half a dozen or more properties that have had restrictions. One county, so 2 or 3 properties, they can't have campfires at all right now because it's so dry in the southern part of the state. Most of the others, they can have small campfires within rings or use propane grills. So check our property advisories, I guess is my point. We've got sometimes there are road restrictions or traffic changes because of construction. We do blue-green algae advisory notices in the summer. So check our property advisories. And then if anything unusual happens, if you're camping, quite often we send an email to those campers ahead of time just so that they know what's going on. So watch your email if you've got camping reservations or in reservations. But just come prepared for the weather. Come prepared to take a hike and enjoy the outdoors. Don't forget your bug spray because they're still around. Most of them are gone. We had some cool weather, so that's a good thing. But just bring your bug spray and just plan to enjoy yourself. You know, I read an article this week that said that 20 minutes outdoors every day reduces your cortisol level. And your cortisol, it's a research project. Your cortisol level is your stress hormone. It can cause weight gain. It can cause heart issues. It can cause all sorts of things if you're constantly being flooded with cortisol, if you're under stress a lot. 20 minutes outdoors every day reduces your cortisol level. And no better place to do that than at a state park.
Couldn't agree with you more. Always the calendar online is a great opportunity to find out what activities, especially given the fall and winter activities that'll be taking place. I want to switch because, you know, it's not going to be too long, Ginger, before we start talking about holiday gifts. And as you're in those parks, maybe getting ready for holiday season, no better time to pick up park passes and other things and check out the Mercantile. And those package deals will be coming around real soon, I assume.
Yes, our 2020 passes and most of the permits have been shipped to the properties. It'll probably be a week before everything is available. So late October, you should be able to go into the park offices or gates when they're open and pick those up, but they probably don't have them quite ready yet. I just checked online, and the 2020 passes are not ready quite yet, but we're expecting those to be online within a couple of weeks. And the holiday gift pack is a great gift. You get either a camping or an inn gift card. You get an annual pass. You get a subscription to Outdoor Indiana, and it's all for a big savings. And you can buy, whether you're a senior, there's a holiday gift pack for senior adults who get a Hoosier gift or a Hoosier Golden Hoosier Pass. And then there's upgrades as well besides the normal one. So insgifts.com is a place to go, and we sell lots and lots of those from October through Christmas. And it's just a great way to give a gift to somebody that lasts all year long.
Ginger, you know, we talk about this as well, but the friends groups in all of our parks are so important, and a lot of them do activities in the fall, encouraging people to get together. How can people get involved in those different friends groups?
There is a page on our website that it's called How You Can Help, and it's over on the navigation bar. If you look at it, there's a link to a page that will connect people to our friends groups, and they are such an important part of what we do. For example, this summer we rededicated the Obachi Fire Tower that was restored, and the Friends Group raised about $75,000 for that, and another $8,000 to put a beautiful wrought iron fence around it, rather than a chain link fence that really looks pretty out of character for something that is that historic. The Friends of McCormick's Creek State Park raised $95,000 to restore their fire tower, and we're going to be rededicating that on October 30th. So both of those groups are good examples of the work that Friends groups do across our system. They supplement the funding that we get, and just like a family has a budget, we get so much money, and there are only so many things we can do with that funding. And the Friends Group help us to extend that funding further, and they support us with events. The Friends of McCormick's Creek are a big part of their Halloween weekend that's coming up. So there's just lots of great things that Friends Groups do, and you can help by joining, which helps contribute to the funding, or by volunteering at a property. The Friends of Pokagon is our newest group right now, and they are off and running and just doing a great job supporting an activity about the Underground Railroad that our interpreter is doing there. And they're volunteering for some of the roles in that, and they've done the research. They're just it's a great opportunity to be a part of what we do at state parks.
Ginger, I can't thank you enough, as always, for the great work that you do and all those in our division of parks. And we had Director Bortner on just a few weeks ago talking about his leadership now of the National Association of State Park Directors, and great recognition for him for his leadership of that organization, but truly a testament to how strong Indiana state parks are. And we thank you for giving time on Indiana Outdoors.
Well, it's our pleasure to serve Hoosiers, and it's our pleasure to be a part of your show, Brian.
Thanks so much. You have a great week, and we will look forward to seeing you outside somewhere, Ginger.
Absolutely.
Have a great weekend. It is the Indiana Outdoor Show. I am your host, Brian Pointer. Don't go anywhere. We're going to be back right after this. What a beautiful weekend here in the state of Indiana. It's always beautiful in October, and I don't care. I'll put that money up against anybody. No better place in Indiana, especially in October. And we are having fun here in the Indiana Outdoors. Hopefully you've found your way to Field and Forest, maybe been to a state park. Thanks to Ginger Murphy for being a part of Indiana Outdoors and all the activities around the state of Indiana and our beautiful state parks this time of the year. As mentioned at the top of the hour, it's my privilege to have Guy Relford, the gun guy, back with us. Guy, you doing anything fun this year? You got your Halloween costume all picked out?
Well, actually, believe it or not, I really, really love Halloween. My wife loves Halloween, so I actually dress up as scary as I can get just to answer the door for the trick-or-treaters, and I have a lot of fun with it. So, yeah, actually, I've given some thought to Halloween already, and I'm kind of wrapping up the sporting clay season. Just last weekend, I punched up a class in sporting clay, so love that, getting out in the woods or wherever the sporting clay tournaments are spread around Indiana, and so I'm loving the hell out of it.
It should be fun this time of the year, especially shooting little sporting clays with the trees all changing and all that good stuff. So what I heard out of that guy is you're one of those guys on Halloween that enjoys as an adult, kind of in a weird twisted way, scaring all the little kids coming for trick-or-treating.
Well, I have to be a little careful based on the age
yes.
of the kids walking up, because like I have kind of a scary biker outfit that is stuff I normally wear on the Harley anyway, but then I, with masks and wigs and makeup and whatnot, and I, and being 6'4" or so, and some of my own natural biker costume in the form of tattoos and whatnot, I can be pretty scary. So, and I love to answer the door with, what do you want? But I have to be careful, because if there's a mom or a dad, walking up with a 2-year-old in their arms, then that can get a little spooky. So
you have some common sense.
I look out the side windows to determine exactly whether I'm going to portray that whole scary appearance or not. Sometimes my wife says, my wife will say, maybe I better take this one.
So the young adults, the older teenagers that come, like at 8:00 and, they're with their older buddies, you just kind of let loose, I hope.
Oh, absolutely. and yeah, no doubt. For exactly the reason you mentioned.
Guy Relford is with us, regular contributor here to Indiana Outdoors. And again, we continue to see and hear about the issue of the Second Amendment and gun laws in our national media. They've had the vacation here of a couple weeks, which has kind of given us a reprieve. But on the other hand, this issue is still at the forefront in many of our national conversations, presidential debates this last week. And there have been all sorts of conversations, most of which have been wacky and crazy, that we've talked about here. But what struck me is, when it comes to our leadership in the House and the Senate, there are some things that I think people need to pay attention to. We assume that our leaders know everything there is to know about existing laws and put it into context and then base that on how they deal with their constituents and what Hoosiers might think. But I don't know. Sometimes we might need to take a second guess and make sure that we really do ask the tough questions and make sure that they're all on the same page. And I know recently you were you had the opportunity to visit with our Senator Mike Braun, and I'm just curious kind of what you took away from that conversation. We like to think that they know everything, but sometimes maybe that's not the case.
Well, and in fairness, even as our elected representatives in Washington, they can't know everything. They can't be subject matter experts on every single legislative issue that they might be presented with. And so, what I always try to do, Brian, is to be a resource and to make sure our legislators fully understand existing law. And this is true at the state level. I'm very active in the General Assembly. I testified probably, a dozen times this session alone in 2019 in various committees that were considering gun-related legislation. And I try to be a resource. And invariably, whenever I have those conversations or when I'm in that testimony, or like my interview last week with Senator Braun, I always start with, well, let's make sure you understand existing law on issues like background checks or our so-called red flag law here in Indiana, because unless you have a complete understanding of what the law already is, you really can't make an informed judgment on what changes or additions to laws ought to be passed. And so that was the conversation I had with Mike Braun. I really applaud him for sitting down with me for an in-depth interview, and I think we were able to help him understand how background checks work in Indiana, or both in Indiana and across the country today. And I think he left that thinking that there's not a lot we can or should do more than what's in place today, and I think it was a valuable conversation for that reason.
Well, you're so diligent in how you prepare and ask those questions. And, in the spirit of what we do here in Indiana Outdoors, nobody ever likes to be blindsided. It's not like you're the smartest guy in the room, or you shouldn't be. You should ask the questions so that you can make sure that people listening are informed. And I know that's the way you handle all of your interviews. How do you think the other, as a whole, where do you think this conversation is going to go once the circus re-engages back in Washington, D.C.? Any predictions?
Well, yeah, and I'll tell you exactly where the challenge is, Brian, and that is that there are a lot of Republicans, and to some degree I put Mike Braun in this category, that have the feeling that if they don't do something, quote unquote, and this do something mentality you see really pervasive right now in Washington, if they don't do something, whatever that something might be, on gun control, I think that they think that they'll expose themselves politically to perhaps a Democratic rival in future elections, or a primary candidate, and this is the way they phrase it and the way they put it in context, is that, well, the Democrats will push through even worse legislation if we don't, quote unquote, do something, and that's a really dangerous mentality, because it assumes that any additional legislation is actually going to have an effect on criminals or psychopaths or terrorists, and not simply be additional infringements on the rights of law-abiding citizens, who typically are the only ones influenced by more laws, because by definition only law-abiding citizens follow those laws. So I think we need to fight that mentality of, wow, we just need to do something so we can feel like we checked a box as Republicans to satiate the Democrats, which is never going to happen, or to protect themselves politically. And that's a fight that we're engaged in every day, and that's not going anywhere. That's going to be true certainly for the rest of my lifetime and probably for generations.
Guy Relford is with us, the gun guy. You can hear him on our home station, WIBC. The Gun Guy is just such a great show, and you bring such a great perspective, and we appreciate that insight in this time of very confusing, oftentimes hyperbolic, sensationalized, emotional reaction, and it makes someone like me mad until I talk to you, who kind of brings me down and walks me off the ledge. And you bring a common sense yet sophisticated argument to these discussions, and we appreciate that very much. And your contributions to Indiana Outdoors are greatly appreciated. And thank you for spending time with Senator Braun and all those that you affect in your legislative work and in your legal work. Thanks for being a part of Indiana Outdoors.
It's always an honor to be here with you, Brian. You have a great show as well, and I listen in and always greatly value the opportunity to spend some time with you.
You go easy on those trick-or-treaters now, Guy. You hear me?
Unlikely.
Always good to visit with you. Best to you, my friend.
You too, my friend.
It is the Indiana Outdoor Show, and I am your host, Brian Pointer. Don't go anywhere. We're going to visit with the Director of the Department of Natural Resources, Cam Clark, when we return right after this. What a beautiful weekend. What a great time to be in Indiana. It is Indiana Outdoors, and I am your host, Brian Pointer. Here we are mid-October, which it's hard for me to fathom that. Of course, in mid-July, I said I can't wait till mid-October. And now I get what I want. I got my windows open. My dog's happy. I'm happy. Temperatures are cool. We got frost warnings in the morning. Glorious. And that means a lot of people are taking to field and forest, maybe for the first time. We talked last week, still a lot of great opportunities for fall fishing. And generally speaking, just a great time to be in the Indiana Outdoors. And no better person to talk to about that than our friend at the Department of Natural Resources, the Director of the DNR, Cam Clark. Director, it's great to have you be a part of Indiana Outdoors. You've got to be excited. This is one of your favorite months, I know, as well.
It is. And, Brian, thanks for having me on. And you're right. This is where I save up my vacation time. I like to be outside as the seasons change from hot to cool to cold. And I'm excited now that the temperatures have started to drop.
Well, they have indeed, and I'm hoping this is an extended opportunity to experience fall. I know because of the dryness and the temperatures and other things earlier this year that the fall colors might be abbreviated, but no less, still gorgeous. And we had earlier, I don't know if you listened or not, but Ginger Murphy was talking about all the special things that take place in our Division of State Parks, and we have her here regularly. And I know you're proud of the state parks and especially their leadership in their director, who was recently recognized.
Sure I am, yeah.
Leadership for the National Association of State Park Boards. But, man, there's no better place than a state park in Indiana in the fall.
Well, there isn't, and things are about to get pretty crowded there, as happens this time of year every year. That's where people like to go. They flock to our state parks, not only because it's great hiking weather, but we're known for our fall colors. And, Brown County is sort of the marquee state park with regard to fall foliage. But I can tell you, there isn't a bad park out there when it comes to seeing the change of seasons.
There really isn't. And all of the activities, one of the things that I'm never... I just constantly amazed at the interpretive work and the naturalists in those state parks who make those visits an individual experience. And as Director Bortner says, they make memories. And in the fall, I have so many of my own. When I was growing up for probably 20 years, we would go to the Abe Martin Lodge with my grandparents, make the reservations one year to the next. And at the beginning, you take it for granted, but then when it doesn't happen anymore, he's like, yeah, man, those were really fun times. And I know there's a lot of families that have those types of traditions going into these parks. And you, of course, are a lot different perspective and a much bigger perspective as you run the entire department. But this is a highlight for you for sure.
It is, and it's, your comment about making reservations from one year to the next, and once you lose that person in charge, it takes a while to get it figured out, because you do this time of year have to make your reservations about a year out. That's how popular Abe Martin is, as well as our other lodges at this time of year. They fill up.
They sure do. Well, I know that you've got so many things that you're looking forward to. We have a recently newly appointed first female director of the Division of Fish and Wildlife. How's that been in the transition?
It's good. I think she's very well respected within her industry. I've heard from multiple people, both in as well as out of state, congratulating us on a fine choice to succeed Mark Ryder, who did an awesome job for years. And Mark was as dedicated a natural resources steward as there were out there, and I think we've got somebody equally as dedicated in Amanda.
Boy, she's been a part of Indiana Outdoors for as long as we've been doing Indiana Outdoors, which is over 20 years in various roles and capacities, and she's always been, as you said, very well respected, but certainly just very available and approachable and friendly, but at the same time knows how to do business and make common sense. And when I spoke to her recently, her priority was to continue the effort of reaching out to constituent groups and having closer and tighter and broader partnerships with those that you work with at the Department of Natural Resources, especially within the Division of Fish and Wildlife. And I anticipate that we're going to see a lot more openness to input from those who are consumers of the division, and look for many great changes and reforms to come.
Well, I think you can expect that. She came in with a vision, and she hit the ground running, and she's implementing some organizational changes and some other restructuring that is going to, as she put it, turn us into a modern fish and wildlife agency. And part of that modernization process is opening up the doors to all constituents. Sort of the old school thought in fish and wildlife was that you pay attention to the hook and bullet folks only, and that's not the way it's done anymore, and she realizes that.
Well, Director Clark, I got to ask you, you said you save up your vacation times. You got any great trips you're looking forward to, or some great hunting opportunities afield?
Well, I do. I actually was out in Wyoming a couple weeks ago chasing sage grouse, and that was a great trip. We did a little camping at the same time, and with some folks from Cheyenne who are trying to fill antelope tags, so we had a good time. And bow season is upon us, and I haven't been out scouting yet, but my hunting partner has been doing a little of that where we hunt, and he says there's plenty of deer out there. And then, of course, bird season starts in earnest in November, and hope to get out and chase them wherever I can.
Well, it's always great it's our privilege to have the director of the department with us whenever you can give us time. Any final words or messages you would like for those that might be listening on this beautiful Indiana Outdoors weekend?
Well, I've said it before, get outside. Whether you're a birder, or a hiker, or a hunter, no better time of the year to do it than this time of year. But the other part is bring somebody with you. Our goal is to get as many people outside and recognizing the importance and the pleasure of recreating outdoors. And I know we've got a lot of very solid outdoor participants, but we need to grow that number, and we're going to have to rely on people like you and your listeners to introduce more people to the outdoor pursuits.
Well, let's just get it done. You go enjoy your weekend, and thank you for giving us a little bit of time. Best to you, and thanks for all you do in your leadership of the Department of Natural Resources.
Brian, thank you for everything you do.
My pleasure. It is the Indiana Outdoor Show. Don't go anywhere, because we're going to wrap it up when we return. It's the Indiana Outdoor Show, and I'll be back right after this. Oh, I tell you, I say it every week. This goes way too fast. This Indiana Outdoor Show is no different. I learned something. I enjoy it. Hopefully you do as well, as we are knee-deep in rounding into the second half here of October, one of my favorite months. It is my favorite month. My gosh, how could it not? How could October not be your favorite month, especially if you're looking for something to do in the great Indiana outdoors? But time flies when you're having fun. Many thanks to Guy Relford, the gun guy, who was with us here talking about a great interview he had with U.S. Senator Mike Braun from Indiana. And he shared his thoughts on how this conversation amongst our national leadership might be headed, and we always appreciate his insights. Cam Clark, the director of our Department of Natural Resources. We're thrilled when we can get a few minutes with the director, and no surprise, he's been out doing what he loves, spending time in field, an avid birder and deer hunter. Looking forward to that. Hopefully you can find some time away from the leadership responsibilities that is in front of him at the Department of Natural Resources. And, of course, Ginger Murphy. The question, why aren't you in one of our state parks this time of the year? If you haven't been to one in a while, maybe you've never been, pick one close to you. There's one within an hour's drive of every Hoosier. Go find some outdoor sunshine. You heard her say, man, it's almost like you get your money back when you go through the gate because of all the health benefits. There you go. Straight from Ginger Murphy. It is the Indiana Outdoor Show. I am your host, Brian Pointer. We'll be back next weekend, everybody.